Menglawa, Chano di Kamaro, the first living things, but Mauzun Tashimas Chanio, Petia, Tisariga, Niruga Nibio, two yet the Mizi, Sari Pipa, letters to Pipare, Tazamulu, not at the sound here come, Shia Sali, Piamio, Hinondore Usali, to Yavaling. But Mauzun Sadanio Sari Petia, we saw in our last letter that for a long time, the earth must have been too hot for any living things to exist on it. We saw in our last letter to a Nausung Saremavono to Twigere, pay go to the lesson that for a long time a chain chaang, a chain totoi chang no, the earth must have been too hot for any living things to exist on it. Ahudima don't have a posanga 2 Nadakua 4 2. Dipongani have to remain, no? The earth must have been too hot, Kabajiga, Pulonia, Piamebo. But do you tell for any living things, Petashi Missouri to live on it, Tuma, need time book. Or die by the Piamesona, Kabajiga, Tuma, need time book, Petashi Missouri, the Petashi Missouri, Pulonia, Piano. So Raga, Pulono, Petashima, Duboma, Manina. When did life begin on the earth? And what are the first living things? When did life begin on the earth? Kawaboma Tashi below starting in now me go to Kuro and what are the first living things? Permauzun Tashidia Pale Taga not a Megon to Kubono Megon Nakumita Kawaboma Tashi below starting in the Tatache not who are Permauzun Tashidia Pale the Megon Nakubono. That is a very interesting question, but it is also a very difficult question to answer. That is a very interesting question. Daga, Tiku, Sewenzalia Kone, Migon Pipai. Now, Piome Cheka, Perma Piome Echene, Senjame Pini Kamiwa, Petru Piome, Petne Samevo. Sewenzalia Kone, Migon Pipai, Tabeme. It is also a very difficult question to answer. People address along Kakere, Migon Lebe Pipai. Say when they account of many than a Pia Katavo. Let us first consider what life is. The Kuku Lujazus and let us do Pibai, to go on let's. Let us first consider Parmauzo Sanaji Javazu, Behagale what life is. The Shizura Palace or Parmauzo Savio Sanajavazu. You will probably say that men are living beings and so are all animals. You will probably say that the Mia Pyogong Pyolim. Pechago Pyogong Pyolim, that's Nesapio Pyore, men are living beings. Luriga, Tashi Pipare, and so are all animals. The lace any alungale, the time will not lace any alungale, Tashi Pipare, the Mia Pyogong Pyolim. What about trees and shrubs and flowers and vegetables? What about blue level? Tarigo by blue level. Trees, Taro Tepemono, a pinji tree tribute, not shrubs, Taro Chombo shrub tribute, and flowers, Taro Pamini, vegetables, Hindi Himati, Tarita or blue lay. A luritlace and Yatashi de Pilisara hobby. No, I say, the penny, Chomini, Pamini, Hindi Himati, blue lay. Surely they are living thing also. Or surely there are Hudavo, Dijaravo, through leve, the she pipai. Palule, they grow and drink up the water and breathe the air and die. They grow and through a Piote, GB never no, not drink up the water, you without and breathe the air, Ligo Shushide, and die, Pio Tisone. Tari looked at the Jamono, no, Piote. Hitaude, Lady Shue, Tisona Pitable, the a penny, no, the Pamini Hindi Hurdy, Tari remove pity. Or the chief difference between a tree and animal is that the tree does not move about. Or chief raga Adika Lotebia, or the chief difference at Adika Quacha Jebo. But do Jama lesson between a tree and an animal. A penny, the lesson Jariga Adika Quacha Jebo. That's when the subject be အပင်နဲ့တိရစ္ဆာန်တွေရဲ့ကြားထဲမှာအဓိကကွာခြားချက်ကတော့တဲ့ဘာဖြစ်တယ်လဲဆိုတော့verb ကတော့ is ပြီးထားတယ်ဘယ်ချက်ဖြစ်တယ်လဲဆိုတော့ that the tree does not move about အပင်ကမရွေ့ရှာဘူးတနေရာမသွားဘူးလေမရွေ့ရှာဘူးတဲ့ if you remember I showed you some plants and Kew Gardens in London အဲ့တော့ if you remember တရိယာမယ်ဆိုရင်ပေါ့နော်ဘာလို့တရိယာမယ်ဆိုရင် I showed you some plants and Kew Gardens in London အဲ့တော့ London မြို့ကဒီ Kew ဥယျာဉ်ပေါ့နော် Kew Gardens မှာရှိတဲ့အဲ့ဒီအပင်တချို့ကိုပြခဲ့တဲ့ဥစ္စာသမီးမှတ်မိမယ်ဆိုရင်တဲ့နော်အဲ့ဒီအပင်တွေအကြောင်းပြောမယ် these plants orchids and pitcher plants actually eat flies these plants ဆိုအဲ့ဒီအပင်တွေဘာပင်တွေလဲဆိုတော့ orchids and pitcher plants orchid ဆိုတာတစ်ခွာတွေပေါ့နော်နောက်တစ်ခုက pitcher plants ဆိုတာ pitcher ဆိုတာဟိုဒီအနေကိုပြောတာလေရေကရားကိုပြောတာ pitcher လို့ပြောတာအဲ့လိုမျိုးကရားပုံစံရှိတဲ့အပင်တွေကိုဒါ pitcher plants လို့ပြောပါတယ်အဲ့ဒီတခွာတွေနော်နောက်ပြီးတော့ဒီ pitcher plants တွေက actually eat flies လိမ့်နေမှာဒီရင်ကောင်းတွေကိုသူကစားတယ်ဒီအပင်တွေကရင်ကောင်းတွေကိုစားတယ်အဲ့တော့ဒီဥစ္စာမျိုးဆိုရင်ဒီ Venus flying trap လို့ခေါ်တဲ့အပင်ကြီးလည်းရှိတယ်ဒါကြီးဆိုလဲဟိုတရဝါလေးတွေစားတာပေါ့နော်သူအစားတော့ကပွင့်နေတယ်ပွင့်တဲ့အချိန်မှာသူ့အတွင်းကိုဟိုရင်ကောင်းလေးတွေတခြားပူးကောင်းလေးရောက်လာပြီဆိုရင်ဒီအစည်းလေးနဲ့ကတ်သွားပြီးတော့မိသွားတာပေါ့မိသွားတဲ့အချိန်ကျရင်သူကပြန်ပြီးတော့ဟိုပြန်ပိတ်သွားပြီးတော့ဒီကောင်လေးကိုစားပလိုက်တာနောက်ဆိုရင်ဒီအပင်ကြီးကတခြားရင်ကောင်းတို့လိုပူးကောင်းတို့လိုဒါမျိုးလေးစားတာလည်းရှိ Then there are some animals like sponges which live at the bottom of the sea and do not move about. Then there are some animals like sponges. Sponge ကရေမြုပ်ကိုပြောတာပါဟိုပင်လယ်သဘာဝမျိုးတွေအဲ့လိုမျိုးရေမြုပ်ကို sponge လို့ပြောပါတယ်။ like sponges ဒီ sponges တွေလိုမျိုးတိရစ္ဆာန်တချို့လည်းရှိတယ်။ဘယ်လိုတိရစ္ဆာန်တွေလဲဆိုရင်သူက which နဲ့ပြန်ညွှန်းမယ် which live at the bottom of the sea ပင်လယ်ရဲ့အောက်ခြေမှာနေပြီးတော့ and do not move about မရွေ့ရှားတဲ့တိရစ္ဆာန်တွေတချို့လည်းရှိပါတယ် Sometimes it is very difficult to see whether a thing is an animal or a plant. But sometimes at the Kadiyama. It is very difficult to see. Whether a thing is an animal or a plant. The Yawatu Takuga, no? The Lesana, a pena, or Piora, Kapai. When you study botany, the science which deal with plants, or zoology, the science of animals, you will see these strange things which are neither wholly animal or plant. When you study botany, then not the miga the Yokha Bida or Lila Mesoin, Yokha Bida Lupio and Amalema or Sepio Shimahari, the science which deals with plants, the opinionet, the sign, no, the Pempinabo, any pinapida, Yokha Bida or Lila Mesoin. Or zoology, the science of animals. The zoology you will see the these strange things which are neither wholly animal or plant. No? These strange things are the which are neither wholly animal or plant. Holy are the kukua appear a water, Loloyaro, Tamu, holy lupia. Which are neither wholly animal or plant. Lesane appear one hobu, a penle appear one mohote, the tuzane yari down to me, Mimalimi. Some people tell us that even stones and rocks have some kind of life and that they feel a kind of pain. Some people tell us that even stones and rocks, even stones and rocks, the have some kind of life. That she and that they feel a kind of pain. But it is difficult to see this. Petra ဒါပေမဲ့ဒီလိုပြောကြပေမဲ့ပေါ့နော် It is difficult to see this ဒါကိုမြင်နိုင်ဖို့တော့ခက်တာပေါ့ Perhaps you remember a gentleman who came to see us in Geneva or perhaps ဆိုတာဖြစ်ကောင်းဖြစ်နိုင်တယ်လို့အဓိပ္ပာယ်ရ Perhaps you remember a gentleman သမီးကဒီလူကြီးလူကောင်းတယောက်ကိုနော်မှတ်မိပါလိမ့်မယ်ဘယ်လိုလူကြီးလူကောင်းလဲဆိုရင် who နဲ့ပြန်ညွှန်းထားတယ် Who came to see us in Geneva အဲ့ Geneva မြို့မှာနော်တို့ကိုလာပြီးတော့တွေ့တဲ့လူကြီးလူကောင်းတယောက်ကိုသမီးမှတ်မိလိမ့်မယ် His name is Sir Jagadish Bose သူ့ရဲ့နာမည်က Sir Jagadish Bose ဖြစ်ပါတယ် He has shown by experiments that plants have a great deal of life and he thinks that even stones have some life has shown ဆိုတာပြသထားတာပေါ့တခုခုလုပ်ထားပြီးသားဖြစ်တဲ့ဥစ္စာမျိုးကို present perfect နဲ့သုံးလို့ရပါတယ် Right he has shown by experiments သူရဲ့လက်တွေ့စမ်းသပ်မှုတွေကနေပြီးသူကပြထားတယ်ဘယ်အချက်ကိုပြထားလဲဆိုရင် that plants have a great deal of life ဒီအပင်ဒီမှာပေါ့နော်သက်ရှိပုံစံကြီးအများကြီးရှိ and he thinks that the temare even stones have some life ကြောက်တုံးဒီမှာတော့မနော်သက်ရှိပုံစံတချို့ရှိတယ်လို့သူကထင်ပါတယ် So you see it is not easy to say whether things is living so what things is living and what is not so that I don't know you see the meaning and all that right it is not easy to say ပြောဖို့မလွယ်ဘူးဘယ်အချက်ကိုပြောဖို့မလွယ်လဲဆိုရင် what things is living ဘယ်အရာကအသက်ရှင်နေတယ် and what is not ဘယ်အရာကတော့အသက်မရှင်နေဘူးဆိုတော့ပြောဖို့မလွယ်ဘူးဆိုတော့သမီးတွေ့မယ်နော် but let us leave out stones for the present and consider only plants and animals Petra ဒါပေမဲ့ let us leave out နာခြံထားကြစို့ဘယ်သူကိုခြံထားကြစို့လဲ stones ဆိုတာကြောက်တုံးတွေကိုပေါ့ for the present ဆိုတာလောလောဆယ်အတွက်ပါအဲ့တော့လောလောဆယ်အတွက်ကြောက်တုံးတွေကိုခြံထားကြစို့ဒါတော့ထည့်မပြောသေးဘူးသမီးငယ်သေးတယ်သူပြောရင်လည်းသိပြီးတော့သဘောပေါက်မှမဟုတ်သေးဘူးသူလေးလာထားတဲ့ဥစ္စာလေးကအများကြီးရှိဦးမှာမဟုတ်သေးဘူးအဲ့တော့ခြံထားကြစို့ပေါ့ပြီးတဲ့အခါကျတော့ဒါကိုခြံထားပြီးရင်ဘယ်သူကိုစစဉ်းစားမလဲ and consider only plants and animals အပင်တွေနဲ့ဒီတိရစ္ဆာန်တွေကိုပဲစဉ်းစားကြစို့တဲ့ We have today a vast number of living things a vast number of ဒါအရေးအတွက်အများကြီးပေါ့နော် a vast number of living things ဆိုရင်ဒီတက်ရှိတွေအရေးအတွက်အများကြီးဒီနေ့ခေတ်မှာတို့ဒီမှာရှိကြပါတယ် They are of all kinds သူတို့ကအမျိုးအစားအလုံးဖြစ်ပါတယ် There are men and women and some of them are very clever and some are fools အဲ့ရှိကြောင်းပြောတဲ့အခါမှာ there are နဲ့သုံးပါတယ် there are men and women ယောက်ျားတွေမိန်းမတွေရှိဟုတ်ပြီနော် and some of them are very clever သူတို့တချို့ကတော့ဒီယောက်ျားမိန်းမတချို့ကတိတ်ပြီးတော့လိမ္မာပါနေကြတယ် and some are fools တချို့ကတော့အယူတွေပါပဲမိုက်မဲကြတဲ့သူတွေဖြစ်ပါတယ်ပေါ့ဒါကလူသားတွေနော်လူသားတွေဆိုတဲ့ထဲမှာယောက်ျားတွေမိန်းမတွေကိုပြောတာပေါ့ okay လူတွေနဲ့တိရစ္ဆာန်တွေကိုကြည့်မှဖြစ်တဲ့ကြောင့်မို့တိရစ္ဆာန်တွေဘက်ကိုလည်းလှည့်ကြည့်အောင် Then there are animals and among them too you find clever animals like the elephant or monkey or ant You find also animals who are very stupid. Or then, there are animals. တိရစ္ဆာန်တွေရှိနော်လူတွေရှိပြီးတဲ့အခါမှာတိရစ္ဆာန်တွေလည်းရှိတာပေါ့ and among them too သူတို့ကြားထဲမှာလည်းပဲ you find clever animals like the elephant or monkey or ant စင်နီမြင်းနီပြီးတော့စိတ်တီလိုမျိုးလိမ္မာပါနေတဲ့သမီးဟိုဒီတိရစ္ဆာန်တွေကိုလည်းသမီးတွေ့လိမ့်မယ်ပြီးတော့ you also find animals which are very who are very stupid တိတ်ပြီးတော့နော်တုံးတဲ့တိရစ္ဆာန်တွေကိုလည်းသမီးတွေ့ပါလိမ့်မယ် Fishes and many other things in the air in the sea are lower down still in the order of life Fishes ဆိုတာငါးတွေနော်အဲ့ငါးတွေနဲ့ and many other things in the sea ပင်လယ်ထဲမှာရှိတဲ့တခြားအရာတွေများစွာပေါ့နော်အဲ့ဒါတွေက are lower down still in the order of life တက်ရှိရဲ့ဒီအဆင့်မှာပေါ့နော်တက်ရှိရဲ့အဆင့်မှာနှိမ့်ကြပါတယ် and right at the bottom of this order you find sponges and jelly-like fishes and those things which are half animal and half plants and right at the bottom of this order ဒီအဆင့်ပေါ့နော်ဒီအဆင့်ရဲ့အောက်ခြေမှာပဲyou find sponges and jelly-like fishes The miga the Pelagian milk, sponges tree, piro or jelly lumungari, tarigo tulime, and those things which are half animal and half plants. Piro Yari, blue yari swing, the lace and the word, a pen to work in a yari, tamuri would tribalime. But the mapema twin and a swing, eri same, a saying ouchima, that twin and we have to try to find if all these different kinds of animals suddenly came into existence at one and the same time or gradually one by one. We have to try to choose to find if raga holam hobula dilmu last if if all these different kinds of animals suddenly came to existence at one and the same time. Not did you drive me? The place a musa a mu no a muquegare, the place a mu saria the carene, the chain name no the she lara mula or damho gradually one by one. The kupi, the cook, the PB, Pilara, Mulas Rago, Piru, Chuzavio, Shatiami. How are we to find this? We have no regular books of those ancient times. Eri Shikedonga Achamana, a Shijare Achinua Atango, the Saudi, Piruma Mashiba, regular birthday Mashiba. But can our book of nature help us? Time Duri at the Bawa Saubono Dado, Kunibi Namala. But the letter 3 a promotion a camo or chapter 1 and the book of nature of Purari, at a Matawadia Saudra, Pale, the Towny Purashi, no? And the book of nature do Kunibi Namala. Don't weapon Hidari. It does have Kunidabo. The girl it has to do ya. Time she and you do test to remove the neck hammer and Lina on later emphasis to later, no? That it does have Kunidabo. We find in the old rocks bones of animals. We find to a tree. Pamati the lesser in the old rocks, the Chao how need them, bow to the lesser bones of animals. Please send you trip. These are called fossils, and when we find them, we can say that when that rock was formed long ago, the animals whose bones we have found must have lived. These are called fossils. Fossils or and when we find them, we can see that when that rock was formed long ago, the animals, whose bones we have found. Must have lived. Nigera Piami. You saw many fossils of this kind, big and small, at the South Kensington Museum in London. You saw many fossils of this kind. The Mia, the Mu Savono, the Lumu, Chopi in Miazo, Trigevare. Big and small, that Tidario, Tidaribo, Tai Trigevare, Bama together lesson at the South Kensington Museum in London. Landama Shide, the South Kensington Piarima, the Mi, Mingevare. When an animal dies, his soft and fleshy parts go bad very quickly, but his bones remain for a very long time, and it is these bones that we find which tell us something of these animals of far-off tales. When an animal dies, his soft and fleshy parts go bad very quickly. Soft fleshy flesh fleshy his soft and fleshy parts and subject. Go bad very quickly but his bones remain for a very long time. Remains and it is these bones that we find which tell us something of these animals of varieties, those animals of varieties. It is it is these bones the ayurigo that we find which tell us something of those animals of varieties. But suppose an animal has no bones, like the jellyfish. Suppose that or suppose an animal does not have bones. Like the jellyfish. Jellyfish lube, no? It will leave them behind when it times. That's a those you Bama Chanagam hope. Chanazia Mishido, Kono go bet Petabi, Potu Piasidama. A fossil, what top you dream pung to Cuba? When we examine the rocks carefully and collect all the old fossil bones that we find, we can see that different kinds of animals lived at different periods. When we examine the rocks carefully, the Tausonio cute side, Cecilia Kama, Tamapidu, NSMA. Peter Baladu collect all the old fossil bones that we find. Don't do it no. Top you, Yuri, Tarigo, Suzanne Akama. Suzanne Gillette Akama. We will find that Tutriale. Bautriam lesson, different kinds of animals. Quebra Tana at least anyone, not least any Mumuma live at different periods. The Che, a Mumuma, Nitangere, Surago, Dua, Dualimi. They did not all come together from nowhere. Or Peniama, Truanibio, to Ladara Mohopa. The Piana go Natavlos of your Ladara Mumhopa. At first, there are very simple animals with shells. Shellfish, for instance. At first, there are very simple animals. Along using Shiba. Blue using at least and so with shells a corny party along using at least any Shiba. A metamas on a very simple animal with shells a corn party along using at least any Shiba. Shellfish, for instance, comparing now, shellfish, for instance, talishibai. For instance means for example, the beautiful shells you pick up at the seaside are all the bony coverings of animals who have died. The beautiful shells you pick up at the seaside are subject to it. Pele Bima, Pele Kenjima, you did not the middle cow de any lapare a con lady guy are all the bony coverings of animals who have died. The so not at least an idiot is you pare a con pipare, not coverings pipare. Later, we find more complicated animals, snakes, enormous beasts bigger than our elephant, in those we have today. Later, we find more complicated animals. Doriga, Puyo, Shutwilla at least an idiot. Natagua, snakes, Muri, the enormous beasts along Timare, Italy saying you want to at least saying you are bigger than our elephant. Doria centered on Puji, no, any enormous beasts I get to me. Surura, dinosaur about Ayupurava. And birds and animals resembling those we have today. The naked tuma shini de not listen in a century, a listen you day to Yavalimi. Resembles at a centura, resembling Lumatonai. Last of all, we find remains of man. Last of all, the not only never know, about 2 minutes, we find remains of man. Do a ludari a joint genuine, dilate to Yava. Yuri by night, I moved out remains of the wife. So, it appears as if there was a certain order in the appearance of animals. At first, the simpler animals, then a higher type of animal getting more and more complicated till we reach what is called now the highest type of animal, man. so it appears ဖြစ်ပုံပေါ်တယ်ပေါ့ဘာဖြစ်ပုံပေါ်လဲဆို as if ဆိုတာတကယ်တော့ as if there was a certain order in the appearance of animals ဒီတိရစ္ဆာန်တွေရဲ့အသွင်အပြင်မှာဒီအစင်ပေါ့နော်အစင်တစ်ခုရှိတဲ့ပုံစံပေါ်ပါတယ်ဒါဆိုရင်ဘလို့အစင်မျိုးလဲဆိုတော့ပထမတစ်ခု at first ပထမဆုံး the simplest animals အယူရှင်ဆုံးတိရစ္ဆာန်ပေါ့ဒါပထမဆုံးတစ်ဆင့်ပြီးလည်းပြီးတော့ then a higher type of animal getting more and more complicated အဲ့နောက်မှာနော်ပို့ပြီးတော့ရှုပ်ထွေးလာတဲ့ဒီတိရစ္ဆာန်ပေါ့နော်တိရစ္ဆာန်ပုံစံတစ်မျိုးအဲ့လိုမျိုးဖြစ်လာတယ်ဘယ်အချိန်ထိဖြစ်သွားလဲဆိုရင် till we reach what is called now the highest type of animal man အခုပေါ့နော်ဒီတရားရီထဲမှာအဆင့်အမြင့်ဆုံးအမျိုးအစားလို့ခေါ်ကြတဲ့လူသားပေါ့နော်အဲ့ဒါဒီအထီကိုရောက်ရှိလာပါတယ်how the simple sponge and shellfish developed and changed and improved themselves so much is a most interesting story, and perhaps someday I shall tell you about it. Demara, how the simple sponge and shellfish developed and changed and improved themselves so much. DTA, the subject to it, totally she did. At a which I did by me, how sort of below Brava, the simple sponge, usually sponge. And shellfish ဒီအဲ့တော့ sponge and shellfish နှစ်ခုပြောတာဒီ ocean နဲ့ sponge နဲ့ shellfish တွေကဘယ်လိုမျိုးဖွံ့ဖြိုးတိုးတက်လာပြီးတော့ and change ပြောင်းလဲလာပြီးတော့ and improved တိုးတက်လာတာပေါ့ themselves ဆိုသူတို့ဘာသူတို့ so much အများကြီးပေါ့အဲ့တော့ဒီ ocean နဲ့ပေါ့နော်ဒီအနေနဲ့ပင်လယ်ရေမြုပ်လို့ shellfish လို့အကောင်မျိုးတွေကဖွံ့ဖြိုးလာပြောင်းလဲလာတိုးတက်လာတဲ့ဥစ္စာတွေက It's a most interesting story. စိတ်ဝင်စားစရာအကောင်းဆုံးလေ့လာစရာဖြစ်ပါတယ် and perhaps someday I shall tell you about it. အဲ့တော့ perhaps ဆိုတာဖြစ်ကောင်းဖြစ်နိုင်တာပေါ့အဲ့တော့ဒီနေ့မှာအဖေကဒီအကြောင်းကိုသမီးကိုပြောပြပါလိမ့်မယ် But at present we are concerned with the first living things. အဲ့တော့ at present ဆိုတာလောလောဆယ်မှာ now for the time being မှာလောလောဆယ်လို့ဆိုလိုချင်ပါတယ် at present we are concerned with the first living things. အဖေကဒီပထမဆုံးတက်ရှိတဲ့အကြောင်းကိုဒါနဲ့သက်ဆိုင်တဲ့ဥစ္စာတွေကိုပြောနေရဖြစ်ပါတယ် Probably the first living things when they are cooled down were soft jelly-like substances without any shell or bones and living in the sea. Probably ဆိုတာဖြစ်ကောင်းဖြစ်နိုင်ပါတယ်ဘယ်အချက်ဖြစ်နိုင်တယ်လဲဆိုရင် the first living things ပထမဆုံးတက်ရှိတွေပေါ့ဘယ်အခါမှာလဲဆိုတော့ when the earth cooled down ကဘာကြီးအေးလာတဲ့အခါမှာဖြစ်လာတယ်ပေါ့နော်ပထမဆုံးတက်ရှိတွေက were soft jelly-like substances without any shell or bones and living in the sea. Soft jelly-like substances ဆိုပျော့ပြောင်းပြီးတော့ jelly နဲ့တူတဲ့အရာဝတ္ထုတွေဖြစ်ပါတယ်သူမှာ without any shell or bones ဘာအခွန်မှဘာအယိုးမှမပါဘူး and living in the sea ပင်လယ်မှာနေပါတယ်ဒါကပထမဆုံးတက်ရှိတဲ့အကြောင်းပြောတာပါ We have no fossil remains of these because they had no bones so we have to guess more or less we have no fossil remains of these ဒါတွေရဲ့ကြောက်ပြရုပ်ချင်းအကျွင်းကျန်တွေတို့မှမရှိပထမဆုံးတက်ရှိတဲ့ကြောက်ပြရုပ်ချင်းအကျွင်းကျန်တွေတို့မှမရှိဘူးဘာလို့မရှိရလဲဆိုရင် because they had no bones သူတို့မှာအယိုးတွေမရှိဘူးလေ and we have to guess more or less ဆိုတာအနေနဲ့အများစုလို့ပေါ့အနေနဲ့အများစုလို့သူတို့တွေကတော့ခံမှန်းကြည့်ရတာပဲ There are many jelly-like things like these in the sea even today. Even today, the Dinikimaro Mabo. Ashia Salina Tumasan, there are many jelly-like things like these. Damu jelly punzamono, Jari Miaji, she. Pamashia, in the sea, Pelerema Shibari, even today, the Dinikimarama. A Dinikimarama, Pelerema, and a jelly lumu Yari Miaji, Shibari. They are round. But their shape is continually changing as there is no bone or shell. They are round through a lower but their shape is continually changing. Then, through it, no moment hang at a meme beyond India. Beyond as there is no bone or shell. Through my azuri, Tamamaho, the Akoni machine to Tamru. no ado khone mashi atwa mo 3 ပုံစံတွေကဒါပြောင်းလဲနေရပေါ့အဲ့တော့ဒီမှာ continually ဆိုတာဒါထက်တလဲလဲအမြဲမပြတ်အစမပြတ်ဖြစ်တဲ့ဥစ္စာမျိုး continually လို့ပြောပါတယ် they are something like this သူကဒီလိုမျိုးတွေပေါ့ဒီမှာပုံလေးကြည့်ကြည့်လိုက်စစချင်းဒီလိုမျိုးလေးနောက်ကျရင်ဒါလေးတွေဖြစ်သွားနိုင်တယ်ဒီပုံစံတွေဖြစ်သွားနိုင်တယ်ဒါကြီးဖြစ်သွားနိုင်တယ်ဒါကြီးဖြစ်သွားနိုင်တယ်ဘယ်လိုပဲဖြစ်ဖြစ်အဲ့လိုမျိုးလေးပြောင်းလဲသွားရဆိုတာဘာလို့ဆိုတော့သူတို့မှာအခွန်မရှိဘူးအယိုးမရှိဘူးပုံတီတစ်ခုခုထားလို့မရဘူးပေါ့ you will notice the spot in the center အလဲမှာအဆက်ကလေးကိုတမီသတိထားမိလိမ့်မယ်ပုံထဲမှာကြည့်လိုက်ဒီမှာအဆက်ကလေးနော်အဆက်ကလေးဒါလေးတွေသတိထားမိလိမ့်မယ် it is called the nucleus and it is a kind of heart it is called the nucleus and nucleus လို့ခေါ်တယ်ဒီအလဲကအဆက်ကလေးနော်ဒါ nucleus လို့ခေါ်ပါတယ် and it is a kind of heart ဒါနှလုံးပုံနဲ့တစ်မျိုးပါပဲ these animals or whatever they are have a curious way of dividing and becoming two these animals 8 legs and no or whatever they are through a they have a curious way of dividing and becoming two ဒီနေရာမှာ curious ဆိုတာထူးဆန်းတာပေါ့အဲ့တော့သူတို့မှာထူးဆန်းတဲ့နှစ်ပိုင်းကွဲသွားတာမျိုးနှစ်ခုဖြစ်သွားတာမျိုးဒါမျိုးတွေရှိပါတယ်ဘယ်လိုမျိုးဖြစ်သွားလဲဆိုရင် they start getting thinner at one place and go on doing so till they break off into two jelly-like things and both of these are just like the original one they start getting thinner at one place တနေရာမှာသူတို့ကပိုပြီးတော့ပါလာ getting thinner ဆိုရင်တခုခုဖြစ်လာရဆိုရင် get နဲ့နောက်က adjective နဲ့တွဲပြီးသုံးလို့ရတယ် getting thinner getting dark စသဖြင့်ပြောလို့ရတယ် they start getting thinner ဆိုရင်သူတို့ကပါလာ at one place တနေရာမှာပါလာတယ် and go on doing so ဆိုအဲ့လိုမျိုးဆက်ပြီးတော့ဖြစ်တာပေါ့ go on means continue တခုခုဆက်ဖြစ်တယ်ဆိုရင် go on လို့သုံးပါတယ် go on doing so ဆိုအဲ့လိုမျိုးဆက်ပြီးတော့လုပ်သွားတယ်ဘယ်အချိန်ကြီးလဲဆိုရင် till the break off into two jelly-like things ဒီ jelly လိုမျိုးအရာနှစ်ခုကွဲထွက်သွားတဲ့အထိကိုအဲ့လိုမျိုးဆက်ပြီးတော့ဖြစ်သွားတယ်အဲ့လိုကွဲထွက်သွားတဲ့အခါမှာ both of these are just like the original one သူတို့နှစ်ခုစလုံးကအဲ့ဒီကွဲထွက်သွားတဲ့အစိပ်ပိုင်းနှစ်ခုစလုံးကဒါမူလဥစ္စာနဲ့တူပါတယ် this division takes place after this fashion this division ဆိုတာဒီလိုမျိုးကွဲပြားသွားမှုอ่ะเนาะ takes place ဆိုတာဖြစ်ပွားပါတယ် after this fashion ဆိုဒီပုံစံပြီးတဲ့နောက်ပိုင်းမှာဖြစ်ပွားပါတယ် you will see that the nucleus or heart also divides and each part gets a bit of it you will see that the meaning that the nucleus or heart also divides the nucleus တနည်းပြောမယ်ဆိုနှလုံးပေါ့ဒါလေးပဲကွဲသွားပြီးတော့ and each part gets a bit of it ဒီအပိုင်းတစ်ခုစီကအဲ့ဒါရဲ့အစိပ်ပိုင်းတည်တည်လေးရတာပေါ့ဒီနေရာမှာ it ကတော့ the nucleus or heart ဆိုလိုပါတယ် in this way these animals go on dividing and increasing in this way ဆိုတာဒီနည်းနဲ့ပေါ့ခုနကလိုပဲတနေရာမှာပါလာမယ်ပြီးတော့နှစ်ချမ်းကွက်ထွက်သွားမယ်အဲ့လိုမျိုးကွက်ထွက်တဲ့နည်းလမ်းနဲ့ these animals go on dividing and increasing ဒီ place နေရာဆက်ပြီးတော့ကွဲပေါ့နော်ကွဲပြားသွားပြီးတော့တိုးပွားလာပါတယ် something of this kind must have been the first living thing on this earth of ours something of this kind ဒီလိုမျိုးပေါ့နော်ဒီအမျိုးအစားတစ်ခုခုကတဲ့ must have been the first living thing on this earth of ours on this earth of ours တို့ရဲ့ကဘာကြီးပေါ်မှာပေါ့နော်အဲ့တော့တို့ရဲ့ကဘာကြီးပေါ်မှာပထမဆုံးတက်ရှိတွေဖြစ်ပါလိမ့်မယ် what a simple and humble representative of life it is တက်ရှိကိုဘလောက်တော့နှင်းနှင်းချာချာလေးနဲ့ကိုစားပြုနော်ရိုးရှိရှိနှင်းနှင်းချာချာနဲ့ကိုစားပြုတဲ့ပုံစံပါလေကိုစားပြုတဲ့ပုံစံဖြစ်နေပါလိမ့်မို့နော်အဲ့တော့တခုခုကိုဒီအာမေရီသဘောမျိုးပြောချင်တဲ့အခါမှာ what how လို့ဒါနဲ့သုံးပြီးတော့ပြောလို့ရပါတယ် there was nothing better or higher in the whole earth than အဲ့ချိန်တော့ကဘာတစ်ခုလုံးမှာ the whole earth မှာဘယ်မှာပို့ပြီးတော့ကောင်းတာတို့ပို့ပြီးတော့မြင့်မားတာတို့ဒါမျိုးမရှိပါဘူးThe real animal had no cam and man was not to count for millions of years. The real animal had no cam. The place and city are and man was not to count for millions of years. Do that again? Ni yabo miyaza charity lara mohoti bahu. Ikabao lara bono. These jelly-like things were followed by seaweeds and shellfish and crabs and worms. These jelly-like things the jelly lumu yari were followed by the seaweeds. The pelagic nidi no pelagic more Darian and Navan Labio and shellfish and crabs and worms. Oh sorry, the seaweed macadu, shellfish the lelame, crabs or canani no worms or pugonivo. Dariga leve cuniga, jelly like the industry and I would like by. I like about danking fishes. Ngari lavare. We know a lot about these as they had hard, bony parts or shells, and they left these for us to find. We know a lot about these. Doria arari changu amyaiti. Palutidle as they had hard, bony parts or shells. Truma majore you say biny no damamho a corny pashi to the motru to amyaiti. And they left these for us to find. Pido through our article, Turi Shatipo to Chanagirao. So long after then, you are not changing Chavi Nama and to study them through Lilawo Kipai. The shells were left in the mat or on the sea floor. The shells are carnivore. The shells were left in the mat or on the sea floor. The carnivore. Shonema, Tamo Pele Jemima, no, Tamu Chanagewari. They were covered by fresh mat and sand and were so preserved carefully. Cover etra the cuckoo put over cover etra. They were covered by fresh mat and sand. The lesser devil. 18 or Kuma Picazas and a lesser delupua. Lesser de Shoni, Dairy, Tamuria to Odore, Odavia Kama were preserved carefully, due to cyber title. The mat became hard because of the weight and pressure of the sand and mat on top of it. The mat became hard. Because of the weight and pressure of the sand. The daddy alleging the PRE Titamlo Shonia Tulare, authority Shonin Becamle, no? And mat on top of it and Tuboga Shoni, Tamuri Tamlu, the Shoni and your Tulawa, Malawarevo. It became so hard that it became a rock. It became so hard and Daga Mahalonet that it became a rock. In this way, rocks were formed at the bottom of the sea. In this way, the Nineveh rocks were found at the bottom of the sea. The Josaunigo, Pele Ochima, Puezila. An earthquake or something else brought out the rock from under the sea and it became very dry land. A subject, an earthquake or something else. Ngalien, Damamho, the Chata Kukua, no? Balugalas brought out the rock. Josaungo. Sura Topolazia, no? Yulana Topolazia, Beanibio Topolazia is from under the sea, Bela Okanibio Topolazia, and it became dry land through a Tauturia Gomidi, Pilaro. Then the dry rock was washed away by the rivers and by rain, and the shells which had been hidden in it for ages, and ages came out. Then the dry rock was washed away. By the rivers and by rain, Midi, Muri, Murian, sea tablet, and sea tablet, and the shells which had been hidden in it for ages and ages. Nepal Maza Cha, Tutema, Pongue Tavi, Niare, Eddie Aconi, came out to Lavari. Saron Pima Kahadum Pindi, Dine, the Yidi, Muri, Tamuri, and your dash of Salama, Hello Salare Kamutra, the Nusai, Topolari, a corner Topolari. This is how we came across these chairs or forces, and after studying them, find out what our art was like in the old days before man came. This is how we came across these shares of forces. And after studying them, find out what our art was like. In the old days before man came, we shall consider in the next letter how these simple animals developed and became what they are today. We shall consider in the next letter. Now Samatu Sanadame, Pechego Sanamalesa, how these simple animals developed and became what they are today. The usual at least and the Plumu Pumutu Lale, be your Diniki, no, Blue Pongamu Blue Pillar, Surahu, now Saima Piu, Sanadabami. Tagaro Miruye, chapter 3, the first living things at all, Papia Shimbagira Pipai, Alo, Tutumai.